Step 1. Getting the garden ready to plant. Getting the garden ready to plant takes a little more effort than just digging in the dirt. Many herbs do grow like weeds, but a little forethought goes a long way in having a successful herb garden. Sun, shade. Your very first consideration when building an herb garden is the amount of sun the area gets per day. Most herbs require full sun, about 6 to 8 hours per day. Many herbs originated in the sunny Mediterranean and must have enough sun to produce leaves and grow properly. Monitor the area where the garden will be and make sure it sits in the sun most of the day. A few herbs do better in partial shade, so make sure a corner of the garden is shaded in the afternoon. Soil. Herbs do not like to have wet roots. The soil needs to be well drained, meaning puddles of water should never remain for more than 20 minutes after a heavy rain. One way to tell if the soil is well drained is to dig a small hole with a trowel, about 6 to 8 inches deep. Fill the hole with water. If there is still water in the hole after 20 minutes, there could be a problem. If the water does not drain out of the hole in half an hour, look for another place to put your garden. It is possible to make a garden in a moderately wet zone by creating raised beds. Make the borders of the bed with wood or block and place about 1 to 2 inches of gravel in the bottom and fill it with soft and fluffy potting soil. The best way to do this is to make the garden no wider than you can reach. This way, you will never have to step into the garden and compact the soft soil down. The plants will grow well because the soil is nice and aerated. The gravel will help any excess water drain away. Herbs do best in soils that have a pH level of 5.5 to 6.5, but will grow in soil with a pH level of 7.0, making them suitable to be grown in a vegetable garden. Taking a pH level of your soil is very important. This measures the amount of acidity in the soil. The number 7.0 is neutral, which most vegetables require. Anything under 7.0, like 5.5, is more acidic, while anything more than 7.0 is alkaline. So that means herbs prefer a slightly acidic soil. An instant soil test is easily purchased at a home and garden store. You can also purchase one that will be sent away and have more detail at your county extension office. Both have little capped test tubes with fluid in them. Just add soil to the tubes, shake, and the fluid turns color. With the instant test, match the color of the fluid to the corresponding pH level color on a paper or a card. Soil pH affects intake of nutrients from the soil. An example would be the yellowing of leaves between the veins. This tells us that the plant has an iron deficiency. That doesn't mean the soil has no iron in it, but it does mean that the soil is too acidic, making it difficult for the plant to absorb iron. To raise pH, limestone is used. Agricultural limestone is very fine. Use dolomitic limestone, a combination of calcium carbonate and magnesium. To lower pH, use agricultural sulfur. Mix either into the soil with a garden tiller to at least 6 inches down. It is best to lay down sulfur and let it stew over the winter. Soil texture. The texture of the soil is very important for the growth and development of herb plants. Clay-like soil is hard for herbs because it takes strength for the roots to grow into the soil. It is like pushing an arm through a stone wall to get to the other side. Clay does not allow for air pockets that help plants grow. It is also hard for water to penetrate clay soil. Sand has an abundance of air, and water goes through it like a sieve. The roots can't get enough water in sandy soil because it drains too fast, and there are very few nutrients. The best texture for any garden is called loam. Loam is light and falls apart in the hand if it is squished together between the hands and fingers. With loam, there is enough structure for plant roots to take hold and anchor themselves, there is an abundance of oxygen, and water stays put long enough to nourish the roots without soaking them. Not too many people are lucky enough to have loamy soil without doing something to it. One of the best things to add to soil is compost. Compost is made with organic matter like grass clippings, vegetable scraps, straw, pine needles, eggshells, coffee grounds, and such. It is possible to get compost from a garden centre, but it is easy and more economical to make it yourself. Just take some boards and nail them in a square, placing them on the ground in a corner of the yard, or purchase plastic compost bins. Just add the organic matter, soil, and water, and mix it up occasionally. The material will break down into what looks like rich black soil. Add 2 inches of compost to the garden before planting to give the earth an infusion of nutrients for your herb garden. It is also advisable to add some manure that has been aged about 6 months from farm animals including cows and pigs. Chicken and rabbit droppings are good for the garden and do not need to be aged. It adds nitrogen and helps the leaves of herbs grow big. Peat moss lightens heavy soil and gives more structure to sandy soil. It also puts a little acid into the soil, which herbs love. Water access. It is very important that there is proper water access for an herb garden. Toting water to the garden is probably not the best way to transport it. Make sure there is a spigot nearby. Most herbs do not need much supplemental water in the first place, but in a drought, watering is recommended. The best scenario is to water with a soaker hose, positioned in the garden so it snakes through stems of the plants, around roots. Soaker hoses are more efficient and save money because water does not spew away from the garden and water grass or concrete. It is perfectly fine to use a sprinkler too, but do not water close to the evening. Water droplets stay on the leaves of herbs and do not evaporate. This can lead to some nasty diseases. Digging in. To start your garden, clear the area of any grass, weeds, or stones. Use a garden tiller to dig down at least 6 inches, but 12 inches is better. Add 2 inches of compost and dig it into the soil with the tiller. Add other additives necessary and dig them in until the soil becomes loamy. Your garden is now ready to plant.